It was a quiet Saturday morning in the little suburban neighborhood, the kind where everyone knew everyone, and every mailbox seemed to tell a story. But today, something unusual was parked in front of one of the houses, a bright, shiny pink Porsche. Not just any car, but one so bold, so loud, it seemed to announce itself before anyone even stepped outside. Mark, the man who lived in the house, was enjoying his morning coffee on the porch when he first noticed the stir. He loved cars, and his wife, Lisa, had been saving for months to buy the Porsche she had dreamed about since she was a teenager. Finally, she had made it happen, and today was the day she would bring it home. Mark took a sip of his coffee and smiled. Lisa had always had a thing for flashy cars, and he secretly loved her enthusiasm. It suits her perfectly, he thought. It's bold, fun, and completely Lisa. Just as he was about to take another sip, he noticed movement at the end of the street. Mrs. Karen Thompson, better known in the neighborhood as HOAKaren, was marching down the sidewalk. Karen was the kind of person who saw herself as the self-appointed police of the neighborhood, the one who knew every rule and made sure everyone followed them. Most people tried to avoid her because confrontation with Karen was never simple. She had a sharp tongue, a loud voice, and a way of making even the smallest complaint feel like a major scandal. Mark's heart sank slightly. He knew exactly where this was going. Karen had a habit of complaining about anything that didn't fit her idea of perfect neighborhood standards. And a bright pink Porsche? That was going to be a problem. As Karen got closer, Mark could see the deep frown forming on her face. Her eyes locked on the Porsche as if it had personally insulted her. She stopped right at the edge of the driveway, folded her arms, and let out a dramatic sigh so loud it carried across the street. "Do you think this is acceptable?" she called out, her voice sharp and demanding. Mark set down his coffee, trying to stay calm. "Good morning, Karen," he said evenly. "Lisa just bought a car she's wanted for a long time. It's a Porsche. She loves it." Karen stomped her foot like a child throwing a tantrum. "A Porsche," she repeated, almost in disbelief. "A bright pink Porsche? In this neighborhood? Absolutely not. You know we have standards here." Mark raised his eyebrows. "Standards?" he asked carefully. "I don't think the HOA has any rules against car colors." Karen's eyes narrowed. "It doesn't matter. It's offensive. It's ridiculous. And it doesn't match anything in the neighborhood. You can't just..." Before she could finish, Lisa appeared from the garage, wearing sunglasses and a confident smile. She walked up to Karen slowly, giving her a look that said, "I am not afraid of you." "Hi, Karen," Lisa said politely but firmly. "We really like the car. It makes us happy, and we followed all the rules when we bought it." Karen's jaw tightened. "Rules? Rules don't cover this. This is a public disturbance. People will talk. It's completely unacceptable." Mark tried to intervene, but he knew it was useless. Karen had already decided she was offended, and nothing he said would change that. Her eyebrows were raised, her lips pressed tight, and her hands were on her hips. She looked like she was ready to explode at any second. "Listen, Karen," Lisa said calmly, "we are part of this neighborhood, just like you. We pay our dues, we follow the guidelines, and this car is completely legal. I'm sorry you don't like it, but it's ours, and we're proud of it." Karen's face turned red, not the gentle blush of embarrassment, but a furious, angry red. She opened her mouth as if to say something, then paused. She seemed to be searching for the perfect insult, the perfect threat, the perfect way to make everyone around her feel guilty. And then she did something Mark didn't expect. She pointed directly at the Porsche and shouted, "I demand that you give me this car. Free. Right now." Mark blinked. He thought he had misheard her. "Excuse me," he asked, unsure if he was awake or dreaming. Karen stomped again. "I said, give me the car. You can't just flaunt this in front of everyone. It's a public nuisance. I'm part of the HOA, and I have rights. I am entitled to this car. Now." Lisa's sunglasses didn't move, but her eyes narrowed behind them. She looked calm, but there was a fire there, too, a fire Karen had never seen in her life. "Karen," she said slowly, "this car is not for sale. You cannot demand it. You can complain all you want, but it's ours, and we are not giving it to you." Karen's voice rose even louder. "You don't understand. I have the power to make your life miserable. I can fine you, I can call meetings, I can make everyone hate you. And yet you think you can just..." Mark interrupted her, holding his hands up. "Karen, please. Let's not do this in front of everyone. Can we talk calmly?" But Karen didn't listen. Her anger was too high, her ego too big. She started pacing back and forth, muttering loudly, making a scene that drew curious glances from neighbors across the street. Children were stopping their bikes, dogs were barking, and some neighbors even stepped outside to watch the drama unfold. It was becoming clear to Mark that Karen wasn't just upset. She was obsessed. The pink Porsche had somehow become a personal attack on her, a challenge to her authority in the neighborhood, and she would not rest until she had made her point. Lisa stepped closer to Mark and whispered, "She's crazy." Mark nodded, knowing she was right. But he also knew one thing: this wasn't going to end quickly. Karen was going to escalate, and Mark had a feeling this was just the beginning of a very long, very dramatic conflict. And as Karen's voice rose once again, demanding the Porsche like it was a national treasure, Mark realized something else. This wasn't just about a car. This was about power, control, and ego. And Karen had plenty of all three. Mark took a deep breath, knowing that the next few hours, or maybe days, would be a wild ride. He just hoped Lisa's love for her pink Porsche would survive the storm that was about to hit their peaceful little street. From the outside, it looked like a simple neighborhood dispute. But for Mark and Lisa, it was the start of a dramatic battle they had never expected, one that would test patience, courage, and a sense of humor they didn't know they had. And somewhere deep down, Mark knew one thing for certain: this story would be told in the neighborhood for years to come. The morning sun was just climbing higher when Karen didn't just knock politely, she practically banged on the front door like she was announcing a national emergency. Her knuckles rapped sharply against the wood, and each thump echoed down the quiet street. Mark and Lisa exchanged a glance. Mark muttered under his breath, "Here we go again." Lisa, calm but alert, walked to the door and opened it a crack. Karen didn't even wait to be invited inside. She pushed the door slightly, leaned in, and fixed Lisa with a glare so intense it could have melted steel. "This car," Karen started, her voice shaking with anger and excitement all at once, "is a disgrace. Absolutely unacceptable. And you are flaunting it in front of everyone." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Karen, it's a legal car. It's on our property. We followed all the rules." Karen's lips curled into something like a sneer. "Rules? Ha! You think the HOA doesn't see the big picture? The standards? The vision of this neighborhood?" Mark tried to stay calm. "Karen, please, this is just a car. Can we talk about it like adults?" But Karen wasn't done. Not even close. She took a step closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper that somehow carried like a shout. "Adults? You think you understand responsibility? Let me tell you something, I know what's best for this neighborhood. And that car? It's a personal insult to me. I demand it. Free. Right now." Lisa's mouth dropped slightly, and Mark stared at Karen in disbelief. "You're serious?" he asked. Karen's eyes were wide, and she nodded so vigorously it was almost comical. "Deadly serious. I have a right. I am the guardian of the standards here. And I will not rest until this wrong is corrected." Lisa stepped back, hands on her hips. "Karen, you cannot just demand things. That's not how it works. You can complain, but you cannot take the car. Period." Karen's reaction was immediate and dramatic. She stomped her foot like a child and let out a long, high-pitched groan, the kind that made even Mark wince. "Period? You dare tell me period? I can fine you, you know. I can summon meetings. I can make sure everyone despises you for this. Mark could feel the tension rising like a balloon about to burst. The street was silent, except for the faint hum of a neighbor mowing their lawn in the distance. Birds had stopped chirping, as if sensing the storm about to erupt. Karen didn't stop there. She suddenly pulled out a clipboard from nowhere, as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. She started flipping through papers and pointing at imaginary rules. See this? This is a guideline. And that? That is precedent. Your car violates the spirit of everything we've built here. Lisa tilted her head, unimpressed. Karen, those papers don't even make sense. They're not rules, and even if they were, a pink car isn't illegal. You're creating problems where none exist. Karen's voice climbed another octave. Creating problems? I am preventing chaos. I am protecting beauty. I am. Mark held up his hands. Karen, enough. You're making a scene, and neighbors are watching. Let's take a deep breath in. But Karen didn't take a breath. She suddenly pointed to the Porsche and shouted, "That car belongs to me. I am entitled. You will give it to me before noon. Or else." Lisa's eyes narrowed. Or else what? You'll complain more? Threaten more? Karen, you are being ridiculous. You cannot scare us with made-up consequences. Karen's face twisted into something between anger and disbelief. She opened her mouth as if to yell, then paused, then whispered fiercely, "You don't understand. I am capable of much worse than you think." Mark noticed her hands trembling slightly. Not from fear, Karen didn't know fear, but from rage so intense it made her jittery. This wasn't just anger, it was obsession. The pink Porsche had somehow become a personal enemy to her, and she wouldn't leave without a battle. Lisa leaned in slightly, her tone soft but firm. Karen, we respect the neighborhood, we follow rules, and we care about appearances too. But this car is ours. You cannot just demand things. That's not how life works. Karen blinked, as if the words hadn't registered. Then she took a dramatic step back, crossed her arms, and let out a huff that sounded suspiciously like she had just been personally insulted. "This isn't over," she said, her voice low and threatening, yet oddly theatrical. "I will be back. And when I return, you'll regret this day. You mark my words." With that, Karen spun on her heels and marched back down the sidewalk, her heels clicking in a rhythm that sounded almost like a warning drumbeat. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, some whispering, some shaking their heads, and a few secretly smirking at the over-the-top display. Mark closed the door slowly, letting out a long sigh. Wow, that was intense. Lisa leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You think that's the worst of it?" she asked, a faint smile on her lips. Mark shook his head. "I have a feeling, this is just the beginning." And indeed, it was. Because Karen didn't just leave, she left a trail of tension, curiosity, and drama that would ripple through the neighborhood for days. She was already plotting her next move, and Mark and Lisa both knew that the pink Porsche had become a symbol of defiance in the face of Karen's theatrics. The couple exchanged a glance, silently agreeing on one thing: they were not going to let Karen ruin their day or their car. But the question lingered in the air like smoke: what would she do next? After Karen stormed off, the street seemed to breathe a moment of relief, but Mark and Lisa knew better. Karen didn't just leave, she was scheming, like a general plotting her next attack. By mid-morning, things got unusual. First, a series of sticky notes began appearing around their property. One on the mailbox read, "This color is unacceptable. Change it or face consequences." Another on the garage door warned, "Pink cars cause chaos. HOA demands compliance." Lisa stared at the notes, then at Mark. "She's really committed to this, isn't she?" Mark rubbed his temples. "Committed? I think she's obsessed." Karen wasn't stopping at notes. She had started taking photos of the Porsche from the street, crouching behind bushes, peeking through windows like she was documenting some huge crime. Every snap of her camera seemed to say, "I will not let this car exist peacefully." Then came the flyers. Bright, official-looking sheets printed on glossy paper appeared in neighbors' mailboxes. They read things like, "Attention, pink Porsche alert. Standards at risk. HOA concern, is your neighborhood safe from chaos?" The couple couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. Mark picked up one flyer, shaking his head. She's really turning this into a full-blown mission. But it wasn't funny for long. Karen decided to confront them in person again, this time in an even more dramatic way. She arrived wearing oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat, as if she were about to attend a secret espionage meeting. In her hand, she carried a briefcase, which she opened with a flourish to reveal more papers, charts, and even a ruler. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "What now? Is she measuring the car?" Karen's voice boomed across the driveway. "Yes. I am measuring its impact on the neighborhood." She held up the ruler, pointing at the wheels, the mirrors, the doors, as if she were conducting some top-secret inspection. "The angles are wrong. The color is too loud. The vibe is unacceptable." Mark had to bite his lip to keep from laughing. "She's lost it," he whispered to Lisa. But Karen wasn't done. She suddenly pulled out a megaphone from her bag and shouted, "Neighbors! Witness the chaos! This Porsche defies harmony." From behind the curtains, several neighbors peeked, some confused, some amused. A few even came outside, pretending to inspect the car, unsure whether to intervene or just watch the show. Lisa put a hand on Mark's arm. "She's turning this into a spectacle. Don't engage, she wants an audience." Karen wasn't listening. She circled the car slowly, making notes, pointing dramatically, and muttering rules that didn't exist. "This is a violation of aesthetic law. This is against taste. This is unacceptable." Then she paused, looked at Mark and Lisa, and whispered, almost conspiratorially, "I can make your life very difficult. Fines. Complaints. Meetings. You will regret this car." Lisa folded her arms, smiling calmly. "Karen, you can threaten all you want. But we're not going anywhere. The car is ours. The rules you're inventing? They don't exist." Karen's eyes narrowed to slits. She dropped the megaphone with a thud and stomped her foot. "You don't understand. I am the guardian of the neighborhood. I decide what is acceptable and what is not. And this car, this pink menace, is a personal affront." Then she did something that shocked Mark and Lisa even more. She tried to tape a notice directly on the Porsche windshield, like she had the authority to claim the car. Mark gently but firmly stopped her, taking the tape from her hands. "Karen," he said, sternly. "This is going too far." Karen looked genuinely offended, as if he had insulted her very existence. "Too far? I have not even begun. You will see. I will not stop until justice is served." As Karen marched away again, Mark and Lisa couldn't help but feel a mix of exhaustion, disbelief, and amusement. This wasn't just a neighbor dispute. It was turning into a full-blown neighborhood saga, and Karen was determined to make the pink Porsche a legend. Lisa leaned on the car, running her hands over the smooth, shiny paint. "She's crazy, but I kind of love that we own this car. It's like a symbol now." Mark nodded, smiling. "Yeah. A symbol of patience and insanity." Little did they know, Karen was already plotting her next move, something even more dramatic than notes, flyers, or measuring tapes. The calm Saturday morning had been replaced with tension, suspense, and the unmistakable feeling that things were about to get much crazier. The neighborhood might have seemed quiet to outsiders, but for Mark, Lisa, and the infamous pink Porsche, the real drama was just beginning. By Monday morning, the neighborhood had already begun to feel different. The sun shone as usual, birds chirped, and mailboxes still held the usual letters, but behind closed doors, tension lingered like a storm cloud. The infamous pink Porsche had become the center of attention, and Karen was determined to make sure everyone knew it. Karen didn't waste time. She had discovered her next strategy, recruiting allies among the neighbors. She went door to door, clutching her clipboard like it was a treasure map leading to justice. Have you seen it? She asked Mrs. Green from across the street. The pink Porsche. It's a disaster. Completely unacceptable. We must take a stand before this spreads. Mrs. Green raised her eyebrows. Karen, it's just a car. Just a car? Karen's eyes widened as if she had just uncovered a great conspiracy. No. It is a symbol of chaos. It threatens the harmony of our neighborhood. We cannot let this continue. Some neighbors nodded politely, others tried to laugh it off, but a few looked concerned. Karen's energy was contagious, and she made it sound like anyone who disagreed would be responsible for neighborhood collapse. Meanwhile, Mark and Lisa watched from their porch, sipping coffee and observing Karen's antics with a mix of amusement and disbelief. Do you think she's going to leave us alone? Mark asked. Lisa shook her head. Nope. This is only the beginning. She's turning the entire neighborhood into her stage. And we're the stars of the show. True to form, Karen had more tricks up her sleeve. She started sending long, dramatic emails to the HOA group, complaining about the pink Porsche, the angles of the driveway, and even the vibes coming from the house. She attached blurry photos of the car from every possible angle, labeling them, Exhibit A, Disturbance of Neighborhood Harmony. The couple couldn't help but laugh. Exhibit A? Lisa said. She's calling a car an exhibit like it's a crime scene. Karen didn't stop there. She took to placing small signs in the yards of neighbors, with messages like, Support our neighborhood. Say no to chaos. Each sign pointed subtly toward Mark and Lisa's house, as if rallying the community against them. The neighborhood buzzed quietly with whispers. Some people found it hilarious. Some found it frustrating. And a few, Karen's true targets, felt guilty for owning a car that didn't even belong to them. One afternoon, Mark returned home from work to find Karen standing on the sidewalk, holding a small bullhorn. She waved at a few curious neighbors who had stopped to watch. Gather around, she called. This is an emergency meeting. The pink Porsche threatens our values. We must act now. Lisa appeared at the doorway, hands on hips, a playful smirk on her face. Karen, the meeting is about a car. You know that, right? Karen's eyes narrowed. A car? This car. It is a symbol of rebellion, arrogance, and disorder. You cannot underestimate its impact. Mark and Lisa exchanged a glance. This was no longer just a confrontation, it had become a full-blown neighborhood circus. Karen was not content with scolding them alone, she wanted witnesses, allies, and drama. Later that day, Mark noticed Karen leaving anonymous notes under car windshields across the street, each one warning about the threat of pink vehicles. By the end of the evening, whispers had turned into side conversations between neighbors. People were starting to gossip, and Karen's plan was working, though not entirely as she expected. Lisa laughed softly. She's crazy, but she's also ambitious. I can't believe someone can obsess this much over a color. Mark nodded. Yeah. And we're stuck in the middle. But we need to stay calm. If we react, she wins. But Karen was already plotting her next dramatic move. She had decided that subtlety wasn't working. Now, she wanted to force a confrontation that couldn't be ignored, something big enough to make the neighborhood remember the pink Porsche forever. As she strutted back toward her house, clipboard in hand and a notebook full of evidence, Karen muttered to herself, This isn't over. Oh no, it's only getting started. I will make sure they pay attention. From the porch, Mark and Lisa watched silently. They knew that Karen's obsession was escalating, and they could only brace themselves. The neighborhood had become a chessboard, and Karen considered herself a grandmaster. The pink Porsche? Merely the pawn that had started it all. And somewhere deep down, Mark couldn't help but think, this battle was going to get even weirder and probably much louder. By Wednesday, the pink Porsche had officially become Karen's obsession. The neighborhood had gotten used to the whispers, the notes, and the yard signs, but today, Karen had a new plan. She was going to confront Mark and Lisa directly with a list of demands. It started with a knock on the door so dramatic it made the windows rattle. Mark opened the door to find Karen standing there, holding a manila folder thick with papers, a ruler sticking out like a sword. "I've compiled a comprehensive report," Karen announced, her voice booming, detailing all the violations caused by your car. "And I'm here to demand corrections immediately." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Corrections? Like, painted another color?" Karen's lips curled into a grin that was part evil genius, part pure insanity. "Not just color. There are angles, reflections, and even," she waved a finger at the Porsche, "the aura. You must correct every single aspect, or face consequences." Mark took a deep breath. "Karen, this is ridiculous. There are no rules about a car's aura." Karen's eyes sparkled as if she had been waiting for this argument. "Rules? Ha! They don't need to exist. I create rules. And these rules are binding for your peace, your morality, and your neighborhood's well-being." Then she opened the folder with a dramatic flourish. Inside were diagrams showing the car's height, width, and curvature. Photos of the car from every possible angle. Handwritten notes with phrases like, "too flashy," and "disturbs harmony." A tiny sticky note, "pink is unacceptable, psychologically harmful." Lisa peeked over Mark's shoulder. She really went all out. Karen wasn't finished. She started reading her demands aloud in a booming voice, like she was presiding over a courtroom. 1. The car must be repainted in a neutral color. 2. Wheels must be adjusted for proper alignment with neighborhood aesthetics. 3. The driveway must be reorganized to minimize chaos. 4. You must host a meeting to apologize to neighbors for the visual disturbance. 5. I must be given a free ride in the car immediately. Mark blinked. Wait, did she just say she wants a free ride? Karen nodded solemnly. Absolutely. I deserve it. It is my civic duty to experience the chaos firsthand. Lisa couldn't help but smirk. Karen, the car is not yours. And you're not riding it. Ever. Karen's face turned red, veins visible in her forehead. You are defying me. This is an act of rebellion against neighborhood law, decorum, and proper taste. Mark held up his hands calmly. Karen, if you touch the car or make false claims, we will have to record it. This isn't personal, it's just reality. You can't invent rules and demand compliance. Karen's jaw dropped. Record it? Threaten me? You think you can intimidate me? I have the moral high ground. Then she stomped around the driveway, muttering to herself, pointing at the car, and jotting notes furiously in her little notebook. The neighbors peeking from their windows must have thought a storm had moved in, except it was just Karen, marching like a general planning a battle. Mark whispered to Lisa, we need to stay calm. Don't give her the reaction she wants. Lisa nodded. I know. Let her make a fool of herself, it's only entertainment at this point. Karen, oblivious to the subtle humor in the situation, finally paused and glared at the couple. Mark and Lisa, you will regret defying me. I will escalate. I will call meetings, I will send letters, I will. Mark cut her off gently. Karen, you're already escalating. Maybe it's time to stop? Karen gasped. Stop? Never. I am the protector of standards, the guardian of harmony, the... At that exact moment, the neighbor's dog ran into the yard, barking at Karen's dramatic gestures. She yelped, spun around, and tripped over the hose, landing in the grass with a thud. Papers flew everywhere. Mark and Lisa couldn't stop laughing. Even some neighbors outside started chuckling. Karen jumped up, furious, grabbed her folder, and stormed back down the sidewalk, muttering about moral duty, chaos, and the psychological damage caused by pink vehicles. But one thing was clear, her demands were reaching ridiculous extremes, and the neighborhood was starting to quietly see the humor in her obsession. Mark and Lisa looked at the Porsche, and Lisa whispered, I think we just survived Karen's greatest episode yet. Mark nodded. Yeah. But I have a feeling, it's not over. She's just warming up. And Karen? She was already plotting the next dramatic escalation, determined to make the pink Porsche the most infamous car in the neighborhood, whether anyone else liked it or not. By Thursday, the neighborhood was buzzing. The infamous pink Porsche had become more than just a car, it was a legend. Every lawn, driveway, and mailbox seemed to whisper, "Beware HOAKaren." Karen had shifted her strategy. If subtlety hadn't worked, she would use psychological warfare. She began visiting neighbors individually, armed with her clipboard, ruler, and a list of evidence against the Porsche. "Have you seen it?" she asked Mr. Thompson, pointing dramatically down the street. "The pink Porsche. It's a disaster. Can you believe they dared defy the neighborhood?" Mr. Thompson shuffled uncomfortably. "Well, it is kind of bright, yes." "Kind of bright?" Karen gasped. "Kind of bright? This is chaos. An assault on taste. And you will stand by and do nothing?" Other neighbors got involved too, some out of curiosity, some out of amusement, and a few out of fear. Karen had successfully turned the community into her audience, and she loved it. Every glance toward Mark and Lisa's house became a silent judgment, every whisper a dramatic narration of the crime. Mark and Lisa watched from their porch, sipping coffee, while Karen lectured Mr. Thompson like a professor giving a lifetime course on neighborhood aesthetics. "She's completely obsessed," Lisa whispered. "This is getting ridiculous." "Ridiculous?" Mark replied. "She's making everyone else nervous too. Look at her, she's turning this into a circus, and we're the main act." Karen wasn't done. She decided to stage a neighborhood inspection, asking random neighbors to come and evaluate the car's impact. Soon, a small crowd gathered, peeking over fences, whispering, and snapping photos like paparazzi. Karen marched back and forth, pointing out imaginary problems. "This car," she announced, using her ruler for dramatic effect, "creates imbalance. The reflection off the windows causes stress. The color is psychologically aggressive. We must act." Some neighbors chuckled quietly. Some nodded seriously, unsure if she was joking. The pink Porsche had accidentally become a symbol of tension, comedy, and mystery all at once. Meanwhile, Mark and Lisa had a plan. They quietly recorded Karen's antics, snapping photos, recording audio, and documenting everything. They knew that when Karen eventually escalated too far, they would have evidence to defend themselves. Karen noticed the cameras and gasped. "Recording? You dare record me? I will report you to the HOA, the council, and the moral authorities." Lisa smiled. "Karen, go ahead. We're just documenting reality." Karen's face turned red with fury, and she stomped dramatically toward the Porsche, only to trip over her own clipboard this time. Papers flew everywhere. The neighbors erupted in quiet laughter, but Karen was undeterred. "No matter," she muttered, picking herself up. "I will not be defeated by mere obstacles. The Porsche must be stopped. Standards must prevail." By the end of the day, whispers about the pink Porsche had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Karen's obsession had transformed ordinary curiosity into full-blown gossip, and she was completely convinced she was winning. Mark and Lisa exchanged a glance. "She's going to push too far," Mark said. Lisa nodded. "She already has. Next time, it will be something big, something that will finally make the neighborhood see her craziness." And Karen? She was already plotting her final, dramatic confrontation, determined to make the pink Porsche a cautionary tale for the entire neighborhood. She imagined herself standing victorious, a hero protecting the moral fiber of the street, oblivious to the fact that the neighbors were beginning to see her as the comic villain of the story. The tension was thick. The Porsche sat gleaming in the driveway, a bold pink beacon of defiance. And Karen, somewhere nearby, was sharpening her strategy, ready for the ultimate showdown. It was Friday morning, and the neighborhood seemed unusually quiet. The pink Porsche gleamed in the driveway, untouched, its bright color shining defiantly in the sun. Mark and Lisa sat on the porch, sipping coffee, feeling the calm before the storm. Because Karen wasn't done, not yet. She appeared suddenly, as if materializing from thin air, clutching another folder, her hair slightly messy from yesterday's escapades. She looked determined, ready to deliver the final verdict.
"This ends today," she announced loudly to anyone who would or wouldn't listen.
Mark and Lisa exchanged a knowing glance. "Here we go," Lisa whispered. Karen marched toward the Porsche, flipping through her papers like a general about to deliver her ultimate decree. "I have consulted the HOA, the council, and even the neighborhood archives. Your car violates every principle of aesthetic order, visual harmony, and moral decency." At this moment, several neighbors who had gathered to watch quietly whispered and giggled, holding back laughter at Karen's dramatic flair. But Karen didn't notice they were part of her plan, her audience to witness her triumph. Lisa finally stepped forward calmly. "Karen, we've followed every rule. This car is legal, on our property, and it's ours. We're not giving it to you. Not now, not ever." Karen gasped. "You dare defy me again? Do you understand the consequences? The fines. The complaints. Before she could finish, Mark held up a small device, a phone recording. "Actually, Karen, we've documented everything. Every note, every flyer, every threat. We have it all recorded. If you escalate further, it's on you." Karen froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Recorded? Impossible. I am above this." Lisa smiled. "No one is above reality, Karen." Suddenly, the HOA president appeared, summoned by concerned neighbors tired of Karen's antics. She looked at Karen's piles of papers, her dramatic gestures, and finally at the pink Porsche. "Karen," the HOA president said calmly, "there are no violations here. The car is legal. Your complaints are imaginative, but they don't hold any weight. This ends now." Karen's face twisted in disbelief. But, the aura. The angles. The chaos." The HOA president raised an eyebrow. "Angles? Aura? Karen, perhaps it's time to step back and let the neighborhood enjoy some peace." Karen stomped her foot, but this time, the neighbors started quietly laughing. Children pointed at her, dogs barked, and Karen realized she was no longer the center of fear, she had become the center of comedy. Defeated but still trying to look dignified, Karen muttered something about moral duty and future corrective actions, then stormed off, leaving her clipboard, ruler, and a few sticky notes scattered in the grass. Mark and Lisa laughed together, relief washing over them. Finally, Lisa said, "Peace at last." Mark nodded, looking at the Porsche. "She may have tried to ruin the car, the neighborhood, and our sanity, but we survived. And honestly, it feels kind of legendary now." The neighbors, seeing Karen's dramatic exit, began to applaud and cheer quietly, some even taking photos of the gleaming pink Porsche. It wasn't just a car anymore, it was a symbol of resilience, humor, and standing up to absurdity. Lisa walked around the Porsche, brushing her hand along the hood. "You know, I think she actually made it famous." Mark laughed. "Famous for all the wrong reasons. But we won. And the pink Porsche wins too." As they sat back on the porch, the sun reflecting off the car's shiny surface, Mark and Lisa shared a quiet moment of victory. Karen may have tried to dominate, threaten, and intimidate them, but in the end, logic, calm, and a little humor had saved the day. And somewhere down the street, Karen was probably plotting again, muttering to herself about moral chaos and pink rebellion, but for now, the neighborhood and the Porsche had won.